Welcome back, one and all, to Podstance, the Punk Stance podcast. It is me once again introducing another episode of Release Ramble, back on track as we should be. This time with the band Oceans Away and their member Robbie Goday. It could be Godoy. I honestly don't know. I apologise. I didn't get your second name. I had to research it. This episode was actually really special to me because we did a very deep dive into the world of anxiety. You know, something I've suffered with and still suffer with. A lot of people suffering with anxiety in the modern day and in the past and probably in the future. That's kind of how anxiety does its thing, making you think about the future. But it was a very interesting and informative conversation about someone else's experience with anxiety, how they've dealt with it, specifically around the world of music and the music industry and travelling between places. Robbie's band, Oceans Away, is so interesting in that fact because it's a band that is spread between multiple countries and multiple cultures, hence the term Oceans Away. And I've never had a story like that. I did a post for him about just over 2 years ago about his debut single, Break the Cycle, which we'll talk about in detail in the episode. But it came back to me about 3 or 4 months ago when he put up a post just thanking me for 2 years since I put the post up. And I thought, man, these people really remember these things. And it was a very nice, enlightening moment in this podcast and the page, because it made me realize that these things do matter. They matter more than even I realize. You know, the person creating the content, writing the posts, whatever it is, it has more impact on people than I ever care to dream, let alone realize. And it's massively gratifying. It was an amazing thing to have. It really made my day, my week, my month. I can't remember when it was now, but it was a fair while ago. But that little post led to 2 years afterwards getting a little notification saying this band saw this thing 2 years ago and has really helped us, and then leading to this podcast that Robbie very kindly came onto and discussed his band and the new single that's coming out next year. There's a few new singles coming out, but the most recent one was called TRANSATLANTIC, which we'll get into. But it was such a great conversation to have with a genuinely passionate person, someone who has quite literally travelled the world for their music. And I don't think there's many stories like it. So I hope you guys enjoy it. It was a really lovely conversation with a really lovely guy who's down to earth, grounded, and just an all-around top dude. There is a very obvious moment at some point about the 35-minute mark where the microphone of Robbie's changes from fairly general to nice and crisp. That's because he got his microphone working literally as we took a break. So you'll be able to tell where we split for me to go and have a wee and him to go and do something for 10 minutes. But yeah, I do apologise. There's a slight change. I'm hoping you won't notice it and you'll get used to it straight through. But yeah, that's the technical ways, I'm afraid. So thank you very much, Robbie, for coming on. If you guys are interested, be sure to listen to Oceans Away and their singles that are currently out. There's a lot more coming out next year. 2025 is looking to be a big year for them, so keep your eyes peeled. And yeah, I'll see you on the other side.
Fucking bollocks, mate.
We don't all sound like that.
Just the movies I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess I do sound like that to an extent. Fucking bollocks, mate.
You sound actually way more cultured than those guys. You sound like you remind me a lot of this director I like. His name's Paul Anderson.
Oh, but which good Paul Anderson or bad Paul Anderson?
Well, I don't know. Resident Evil.
That would be bad Paul Anderson.
Yeah. Hopefully that isn't ruin our friendship, man.
Oh, not at all. In fairness, I'm a big film buff, so I can't really complain about any directors, let alone either of the Paul Andersons. That would be terrible.
Okay. Yeah, because I guess there's two of them, huh? And they're both directors? Is that
I know. And there's an actor called Paul Anderson who was in Peaky Blinders as well. So there's
that's a cool show.
Yeah, it's a fairly general name, in fairness. There's probably more of them out there. There's probably one that works in a butcher in like Leeds or something. Probably.
He's like, damn it, why didn't I make it with this name, you know?
God damn it. Like, imagine being called Harry Potter or
dude,
like James Bond or something and being like, well,
right.
my name is the same as a major British cultural icon, and here I am working in a bar, living my normal life.
Dude, right? Or John Wayne.
Or John Wayne. Or John Wick. Right. There's got to be a John
Wick. Let's see here. Well, you're coming through crisp, man. I can hear you really nice.
I'm glad. Well, I need it to sound, in order for a podcast to sound, I mean, there's no visual medium, or not for me anyway, so I'm just here in the worst bobble hat in the world. It's so cold right now. It's the voice note I sent you about the storm is no joke. It's genuinely quite horrible. So I've got my Bearings hoodie on, my lucky hoodie. I've got a bobble hat, and we're about 5,000 miles away from each other. So it doesn't get much
And
better than that.
no, it doesn't. And that's the beauty of this interconnected society we live in now, is that like I could be talking to a English bloke on across the pond, and I'm over here in LA, fucking California life. So that's pretty cool, man. It's that was like unheard of, even like what, even like 15 years ago. That was kind of
I
pretty cool,
know. I mean, ironically, the pandemic probably helped people connect more just
right?
over a completely different medium. So here we are.
Right.
Well, yeah, well, thank you for coming on. Obviously, I want to start firstly by saying that your message when you sent to me about it being 2 years since I put that post up was genuinely one of the most like wholesome moments I've had because I read it and just went, why is someone still looking at this like 2 years after I've put it up? That's mental. So big thanks for that. That really made my day when you did that.
No worries, dude. I'm happy that I could make somebody's day, and thank you first of all for just doing that for us, because that first initial contact that we had with you, I guess 2 years ago, was super random. And it was when we had just released our first single, and I was just like, man, like those little things, which wasn't very little, that was awesome for you to just do that for us, to share our music on your platform was just awesome. So thank you as well, man. That was
Oh,
cool.
well, it's my pleasure. It's equal opportunities here. And when I saw Break the Cycle come out, I have a whole thing. I have a whole playlist of like introductory like singles that had come out, and your one really struck to me because your story of it being transatlantic. I mean, I know you've literally just put a song out fairly recently in the last few months called Transatlantic, which
Right.
we will get to. But for people who don't know, would you like to tell the story of how Oceans Away came to be?
Absolutely. So thank you for asking. And I'll try to keep this brief or not too long-winded.
Whatever you like.
So basically, I never thought in a million years that I would have a band based in Germany. So I've been a musician since I was, I think, officially 12 was when I picked up a guitar. And so it's been like what, over 20 years now. And long story short, I've been in like all kinds of bands out here in LA since I was a kid. I mean, music is something that I just gravitated to since I was a child, because it was sort of a saving grace for me. You know, I grew up in a pretty chaotic household, and life was kind of rough, you know, and music was just sort of that like grounding, just holy thing for me. It still is. So fast forwarding, so like every international story starts, I fell in love with a girl, and I mean, if I'm being completely honest, the true origins of Oceans Away started even before like music. So I met a girl from Germany who was studying out here in California, and long story short, we fell in love. The pandemic hit, and then we had this choice, like, hey, like, could do you want to stay in California? Because like everything's closing. What's going to happen? And she's like, I can't really do that. And I'm like, well, I mean, hell, I don't have any kids. I'm not married. We're not married. So, well, I guess I can go to you. So, I mean, I decided to pick up and pack my bags, and I went to Munich, Germany, a place I never thought in a million years I would end up, let alone, being with somebody there. But, life sort of happened that way. And, I was trying, before I even met my girlfriend at the time, I was trying so hard in LA to make it, quote unquote. And I wasn't seeing any success, ironically. I mean, this is the capital of entertainment, and I wasn't seeing any fucking success, like nil. I was in all kinds of bands, I was in punk bands, hardcore bands. I had a brief stint in like a new wave, like post-punk kind of sound, which really wasn't my thing, but I was just sort of experimenting. And again, just nothing was really hitting. But the thing about those bands was I was just the guitar player. I was never actually the singer in a band. I did cover bands in like middle school, like a Misfits cover band. I did like, I would do like a Global Threat, like these street punk bands, but nothing. I never actually fronted my own band until Oceans Away. So, long story short, I packed my suitcase, I grabbed my guitar, I moved to Germany with my girlfriend, and again, this is the height of the pandemic. So I find myself, this guy from LA, in Europe, and I'm like, I have my guitar with me. I need to do something with music, and I don't know if anything could happen here, in these circumstances, let alone, but I'm gonna try. So I one day decided to draft up a flyer, and I started to go all over Munich on a bike. Or I think I also used the street trams here and there. But you know, everything is so accessible in Germany, so you can really do like a lot on a bike. Honestly, I would go everywhere on just a bicycle. And I would basically put up flyers with the help of my girlfriend at the time. And you know, Munich's not as big as LA, so you can hit a lot of ground in one day. So I was just very honest in my flyer, you know, in my desire to find musicians. I was very honest. I said, look, this is who I am. This is the type of music that I like, and if you'd like to join this band, you know, whatever it is, let's see what we can do with it. So I demoed a few people, you know, people from Poland. I went to this dude's house from Spain, a few German guys, a Russian dude, and no one was really clicking like musically with me. But I thought it was awesome that people were hitting me up because that was like unheard of in LA. Like, you know, contrary to what you might think, you know, LA is like the land of flakes. It really is. Like, you could be like the greatest musician in the world, and people just won't hit you up, man. Like, people just, as we say in LA, aren't down. You know, they're not down to like take something all the way. But in Germany, dude, all of these fucking musicians were like, let's go, baby. Like, I'm ready. Like, I was like, honestly, I was overwhelmed, like, at the amount of people who wanted to start a band. I was like, this is great. So I narrowed it down to uh, two dudes from Europe and one guy, ironically, from South America. This was the original lineup of Ocean's Way. Like, this is the very first, I guess, incarnation of the band, because we've gone through a couple ever since I got back to the States. So I think it was a March 2021 we officially formed, and we've got everybody in the room. A guy from Czech Republic, guy from Munich, and a guy from Ecuador. So, and then myself, the American dude on the vocals. So dude, it was honestly, like, thinking about those times is traumatic because it's Germany, man, and it's the land of just bureaucracy. So like, just even getting a studio was a fucking like nightmare. They're like, no, you must have the test done. You could only have two guys at a time. No, I'm sorry. It is not possible to have a whole band, unfortunately, in these times. And I'm just like, oh God, like, please. Like, this is gonna save our lives. You don't understand. This is our outlet, man.
Very regimented people, the Germans.
Oh, dude, and for better or for worse, it's just how they are. So we had to work around those things, and eventually, thankfully, I had written music almost like right off the bat. Like, right when I got to Munich, there's something about that city that is just so peaceful. I don't know if it's because it's not as fast as LA and there's a lot more nature, but I just sat down, I opened the guitar, I would strum, I would play riffs that I'd had written, you know, back here in the States, and they just came together, dude. It was crazy. Like, Break the Cycle came together like within an evening. You know what I mean? Like an afternoon's time with it. I'm talking like the lyrics, the hook, everything was just like culminated to that one moment. So it was almost like I needed Germany. It's like Germany was the thing I didn't know I needed, you know? So long story short, I keep saying that, but this is quite a long story. We got our first single like in the bag, which is Break the Cycle. I don't know if you want me to segue to that or if you want me to keep talking about the foundation of the band.
You do you, my friend. I've got some questions laid out, so
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
segue us whenever we need it.
Sounds good. All right. So I'm very detailed in when I go on these things. So please stop me at any
Even better. I like it. It means I have to talk less.
Okay. Okay. Sounds great. We got our shit together. I have a full song fleshed out. I've recorded demos upon demos in Pro Tools. I have a really good sense of what I want. So at this point, it's like, what do we do now? And they're like, and well, actually, it was my idea. I was like, why don't we go somewhere and record this thing? You know? And I kid you not, dude, everybody, and I mean, fuck, everybody in the band fought me against that idea. Just one song.
Really?
Yes, I remember it. Like I'm saying, this is like talking about this is cathartic, but it's also traumatic because like everyone was like especially I think the drummer Indra, who's still my good friend. He's this guy from the Czech Republic. He's like, it's not a good idea, Robbie. No, then no, this is quite stupid. We've only been a band for like 2 months. No, 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 it's dumb. And I'm like, no, dude, I think we've got this. And it's not a very complicated song. Why don't we just go and nail this thing? You know, I'm always just very ambitious that way. But the guys were like, nope, we're not ready. We need more time. So I think we kind of compromised, and I bought maybe like another month or two's time. And then the fellas felt ready. So the next sort of step was to find a studio where we can do that. And as you know, it was the pandemic. It was still Germany, so it was obviously going to be a lot of red tape to get around. And let's not even talk about money, right? So I didn't have any contacts there at the time. So at least like in the music industry. And funny enough, there was a dude from my hometown. So I'm from a very small town here in LA called Pico Rivera. And there was a dude out there from my hometown,
Wow.
and who happened to be a family friend's nephew.
The world gets smaller every day, doesn't it?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, and we ended up partying together, and we were like, dude, like just totally. It was nice because like I just felt like I finally had a piece of home, you know, in a foreign land, you know, and then my accent started coming out, and we were just like, you know, it was cool. And so from that meeting, he was really good friends with this guy named Vito, a German guy from Munich, who was really good friends with this guy named Alex Spatz, who owned the studio in Munich where we eventually recorded Break the Cycle. So it was kind of like a three-way process. I met this guy Matthew from where I'm from, who introduced me to Vito, who introduced me to Alex, and then I had a meeting with Alex, and he was like, Mr. fucking Rick Rubin, like he kind of pissed me off in the beginning, dude. I'm gonna be honest, like he was very arrogant. I'm gonna be honest, because like in some ways, fuck that guy. But by the same token, I love that guy because he like recorded our song and he did a good job.
Double-edged
But you
sword on
know,
that one.
so like he was like Mr. Hotshot, you know, he's this half German, half American guy. So he spoke English very well. And he was like, yeah, you know, my friend Vito tells me you want to record a song. I only record music I like. So like I can't promise you anything, but you know, just kind of just being a little bit of an arrogant douche. And I was like, well, dude, if you don't want to fucking record, whatever. Because I have a hot head, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm from LA, dude. We don't take shit lightly. And but somehow, I mean, not even somehow, I showed him the song, and he fucking loved it. He was like, oh, okay, fuck, you're not fucking around. He's like, I want to record this. And funny enough, we were the first punk band he ever recorded. Like he's used to doing like indie rock, you know, atmospheric stuff, definitely on the tamer side of things, but he never had like a proper, you know, punk band come through there. But you know, Alex Spatz and I, we squashed it. Not saying anything bad about him per se, but the initial kind of thing between him and I just wasn't good. Like we had fights, and that song almost didn't come out. That's why I'm saying. That's why I have to keep prefacing the fact that it was quite traumatic in many ways, because just for one fucking song, you know. But I think in some ways that helped sort of give me the, I guess, power to deliver it in the way that I did, you know, because the song is about breaking patterns and cycles and whatnot, and just kind of cutting the bullshit. And I think all of that helped me to release it into the performance. And mind you, before I get like ahead of myself, once we settled everything, once we were rehearsed, once the band felt ready, it was time to cut the song. And I just remember like I couldn't sleep because A, I had never sung in a band, and B, I mean, of course I'd sung. It's just I'd never fronted one. I'd never recorded as the lead singer. So this was my first band where I'm the lead singer, and like all this sort of like responsibilities on me. And I just remember like I couldn't sleep. I was like, fuck, what if people hate it? Like what if like I get laughed at? Like I just had every negative thought you can think of going through my head. But in reality, everybody loved it. Like everybody I showed that song, just it was just amazing the feedback that we got once we released it. And it was actually overwhelming. I mean that's how you and I met basically, right? I mean you loved the song, and So that was kind of like things coming full circle and just sort of the icing on the cake. But yeah, so we cut the single, things got backed up. We didn't get to release it until 2022, although we recorded in 2021. And again, this is kind of what added to my already uh, you know, increasing disdain for this guy Alex, because not only did we have problems in the beginning, but like throughout the process of just getting this thing like mixed and mastered, like it's almost like he just shelved it after we recorded it, man. So I was getting really frustrated. Like, when is this thing coming out, dude? Like, it's been a few months. Like, come on, And the whole band was pissed. Me, more so me than anybody. Um, and there was things just outside of the band that were just kind of undermining my just mental health at the time, and I was not in a good place. Let me just say that. And then I had to come back to the States for a while and stuff, because I was back and forth between Germany and the States for like 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was a lot, dude. I mean, like traveling that much, that far, it takes a toll on you, physically and mentally, and it definitely put a strain on my relationship at the time. And just a lot of shit was going on around the inception of Oceans Away. It's pretty amazing that it's still here. Like, we're still here today. Like, fast forward to almost 3 years now. And we've got like 4 singles under our belt. I mean, I've got more music written, but I mean, we're in the process of a record right now. I just kind of wanted to give the world a taste of who we are and who I am as a person. So
And I mean, what a
um,
song to start with as well. I mean, the reason that I was drawn to it is because of the very story you told. And like, I'd never seen a band sort of quite literally come together from two very opposite sides of the country. And
right.
obviously, I mean, the other songs that you've got, the single wise, are they all in relation to that story? Because obviously, Break the Cycle is about, it's in the, as it is on the tin, really. But then you've also got Distant Romance, which came out last year, which I presume is about the relationship with the person in Germany, and then you've got the very aptly named Transatlantic, in parentheses, Stay Here. But I imagine that they're all interconnected to the same sort of story and themes of that.
Yeah, you're spot on. Absolutely right. Actually, I would say all of them are intrinsically connected to the band itself, and in particular my experiences over the last, I would say, what, 5 6 years, maybe even beyond that. I'd say the only one that is slightly out of their orbit would be Through the Night, which is more so a anthem that was inspired by what I went through out here before I even got to Germany. It's just sort of like the plight of the artist, like, I mean, that song in particular is really about having to, for me, it was dealing with this revolving door of musicians kind of coming and going, fighting with people, falling out. One of the lines in the, I think it's the pre-chorus of the song is, do you want to know what it's like? And do you have the guts for this life? Is what I say in the song, because it's like, it's not for everyone, man. Like, to be a musician, like, honestly, like, do you have what it, not necessarily what it takes, but do you have the guts to like keep doing this despite all of these headaches and all of these breakups and all of these fights and all of these nights where you're just like thinking, this is it for me, like, I'm done, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot that goes into this, at least in my experience, of course. So Through the Night is very much kind of a tale about that experience that started in LA and just sort of bled into Germany. But the other ones are 100% like tied to like what happened in Germany. I think now that we're talking about this, Break the Cycle, to be honest with you, is a very personal anecdote. It's about a particular type of person. It's not really about a person per se, but it's about a particular type of person, and just breaking these, like, I think we've all been in a situation where it's like you're in a toxic relationship, maybe you're on drugs, maybe you're just somehow I don't want to say enslaved, but like you're just somehow at the mercy of somebody else, like an external force, whether it's your past, whether it's your, you know what I mean? So Break the Cycle is like, fuck all of that, I'm taking my life into my own hands,
Mm. I think that's
um
such a powerful message, though. I mean, all of your songs have a very sort of set message to them. Obviously, Break the Cycle, as you said. Through the Night was an interesting one because I think that's a very overlooked thing about being a musician. Personally, I'm not. I just my guitar's over there, but I don't ever see myself being that good at it. But there was something I can't remember who said it now, but it was very interesting that they wanted to be an actor and they moved to LA and they said that the entire stigma of being part of that kind of world is it's fanatical. You always look at it and think, oh, it's perfect, it's beautiful, but you have to think about public indifference and rejection and all the tensions that are going to come between you and other people. And I think that's not really something that's explored all that much in music. It's normally having already been famous. It doesn't talk about the process to get there.
Exactly. Right. No, thank you for that, man. I appreciate that. And you're absolutely right. That's not really talked about a lot in music, and I've never really heard that in a song. And that's why having this band really has been so cathartic for me, because it's like, fuck all these other assholes who want to talk about their girlfriend who dumped them. That's nothing wrong with that, but it's like I'm kind of over that. Like, I mean, I've written a song about love, but like I didn't want to be cliche. Like, for me, I've never wanted to sound like anyone else. I've never wanted to talk about the same shit anybody else talks about, because it doesn't do anything for me. That's the only reason. Like, or that's the main reason. It's because somebody else's experience is unique to my own, and vice versa. So I need to talk about what I've gone through, and hopefully other people out there can relate. You know what I mean? Because these songs are 100% about things I've gone through. 100%. You know, there's no really embellishment about what I say in my music at all. Like, it's really what I've gone through and what I'm still going through. Because the way I see it, I wouldn't have it any other way. And I see music, songs in particular, as they're mantras. For lack of a better expression, they're prayers, man. Like, it's something that you should revisit often, because it's just such a, how can I say, it's a spiritual thing. It's a very holy thing. It's a very powerful thing, that is so overlooked. We really don't talk about the power of music. I mean, I know we do, but like, there's been studies about how this stuff is like akin to like taking a medicine, man. Like, honestly, like it's that powerful, and a message can really drive home that positive force that I personally am trying to do with my music. Is a lot of the stuff I grew up with was very self-deprecating. It's very a lot about self-sabotage, because I grew up listening to punk and hardcore. But you see, my take on it is, why don't we take that aggressive edge, but flip it and make it positive? So you can be angry. You can say, fuck you, but say it to the right people. Say it for the right cause. You know what I mean? Don't just say, oh, I'm going to end my life, or I'm going to do that. I just hate bands that entertain that kind of shit, because granted, we've all felt that way, but like, don't go out and promulgate it, because then what are you doing for your audience? What are you doing for yourself? Like, I'm here with a message, man. And I see myself as basically just like somebody who's recording shit that I've seen in life. Like, I've always got the recorder on, and then I bring it to my music. I guess I'm like a reporter in that sense. It doesn't serve me to be any other way. Like, I can't be, Imagine Dragons and just sing about bullshit.
I'm glad you mentioned them because I was about to say some horrible things.
Yeah,
In
Jesus.
fair, one of my best friend's favorite album is by Imagine Dragons, so I can't be too mean. But it's interesting what you say though, because I think a lot of bands, particularly in the punk sector and the pop punk sector, do sing about very similar themes, and that's not necessarily a negative thing. Relationships do come up.
Sure.
Thing being back in your hometown is a very common one as well. That nostalgia for it, but I do agree that a lot of them can come with this almost defeatist attitude,
Yeah.
like you can look at everything positively, and that's why something like this podcast has been really good, not just for me to talk about my own mental health, but it allows other people
Yeah.
to express themselves not just through their music, but with their music. So they
Right.
can talk about it in a very matter of fact way rather than saying, "Here, listen to this song." You can actually go back and say, "This is where this came from. This is like the inception of where all these ideas came from." And that's why like your story is so unique because it's quite literally transatlantic and you've had this the amount of travel you've done just for the band is like it shows your dedication to it.
Oh man, thank you so much. And I appreciate, like I said, your insights, and you have a way with, just sort of understanding things from a very critical perspective, and I think that's really awesome.
It's my English
Um,
degree. Nothing else. I can't blame it apart from that.
yeah, well, I mean, it's working, and you're putting it to good use. So I'm
You're
sure
the first.
mom
You've
and dad
said
are fans.
you've said that before I have. Even I didn't think I was using it well.
No, but good on you, man. This is great. I love this platform that you have, and you had mentioned earlier that it gives not just the host but also the guest a chance to really like. I mean, honestly, I'm having a great time talking to you, dude.
I'm glad. I'm really glad. I
I
mean,
mean, I know,
we've been planning this for a few weeks, and you know,
yeah.
it's hard to tell when you don't know the person from early on. But I think when people come on, the thing that the whole crux of the show is the music that either you have made or the person is affected by. And I think it doesn't really matter about the personalities. There's no clashing because it's not what the focus is on. And I think that's the same with like any band, especially yours. You're going to have a few major issues when it comes to personality clashes, but deep down,
Oh yeah.
as long as you enjoy the music, doesn't matter.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Like I said a minute ago, I mean, I really am enjoying this conversation, and it's very cathartic for me to talk about these things because I've kind of just been going and going and going, dude, and I don't really have I don't I since the band started, I haven't really stopped. And I'll be honest, like it did affect my health for a minute there. Thank God I'm okay now, but I kind of burnt out there for a second because I was wearing all the hats, and I still am, but now I'm like I have all this experience under my belt since I started the band, like in terms of like how do you how do you produce a record? How do you write a single? How do you, whatever, organize a show, whatever. Now that I have that under my belt, like those crazy traumatic instances that, where I was exposed to this, now that that's behind me, it's like, okay, this is not my first rodeo. So now, yeah, I'm still the leader, but like I just feel more comfortable in this position than I did when I started the band. Because I was just doing everything, dude. And it was like, I mean, from the social media to, the shows to the recordings to, I mean, I've even done all the videos. Like we have videos on YouTube, and like contracting all the people to help me out with that was just that's a podcast in itself, dude. I mean, fucking I almost lost my mind recording through the night. I think, and like if you watch clearly, I'm just out of it. Like I think I was like half asleep in that shot where like the camera opens up and we're in the studio and the lights are behind us. Like I mean I remember that day, but I almost don't feel like I was there because it was like a dream, because it was just the amount of just I don't know if you've ever made a music video before, if you know anybody who has, but dude, it's like 12-hour days of just like hell. But again, as you mentioned, the dedication that I put into this, I mean, there's speaks volumes, right? Like, I mean, I can't think of anything else that I would put this amount of work in because this is the one thing that fulfills me, Nick. It really is, man. Like, I mean, I definitely wouldn't do this for some fucking corporate job or some, bullshit, 9 to 5. I would never stick my neck out for that kind of like entity ever. Like those kind of things, it's a hard in and hard out for me. But this is like a 24/7 thing, man. Like it really makes me fucking happy. Like, I don't care if we're not even playing shows at the moment, or if like maybe we're not seeing a ton of sales on Spotify. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I do this because it makes me happy. Those things are just really perks. Honestly, it's not the reason why I started to do music. This is like, I don't know, man. It just feels like it gives me a purpose. So that's why I am the singer of this band and why it continues. And I really hope that it never dies.
I'm sure it won't. I mean, 4 singles down with stuff on the way. I imagine the plans are brewing under the surface, as it were.
We got some cool things for you guys in 2025. That's all I can say.
I was going to say the other half of this podcast is going to be really quiet if that's all we've got, but that's fine. I mean, that's the kind of I guess there's only so much you can share, and the year's nearly over, so I'll just have to come back in 2 months and be like, right, okay, time's here. What have you got for me?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about anything, honestly. I mean, I like I said, I can really go into detail about these things, and sometimes I feel like I overshare and I overtalk, and I feel bad for because this is the second podcast I've done, where I've been invited on for the band, and I'm very grateful for them. I'm just like, fuck, I hope I'm not overwhelming the host because I can talk, man.
The thing is, it's not about me though. I think this is the point I'm trying to get across. Like this podcast is not for me. I enjoy. I just like I am offensively chatty, so I could go off on one. You know, I work in sales. My job is to
Right,
talk. I
right,
mean, I'm hoping at one point I'll never have to talk for them again, but I can talk for myself and talk to people like
right,
you.
right.
I love bringing people on and having them share their own unique stories about where the ideas come from and where the
Mhm,
band comes from because there are a lot of bands out there. That's just a
mhm,
fact. But all of
mhm.
them have, you know, idiosyncrasies that are worth talking about. It's, you
Absolutely.
know, you in particular.
Yeah, no, 100%. And thanks for that. It's just these are really just nice opportunities, and I love taking advantage of all of them. You know what I mean? Like when you hit me up, I was just like, fuck yeah, let's do this. Like this is great. I love talking about the band. I love talking about music, life in general. It's just I can go on and on. But
I mean, honestly, when you were talking about the music videos, when you said you were half asleep, I was imagining like if someone actually made a music video when the camera opens and someone's just sat in the chair going, just
okay.
complete.
I let me rephrase that. I wasn't half asleep like whereas I wasn't performing. It's just my brain was like there and not there. So like it's because I was like shutting down, dude. I just remember like I didn't sleep that night. I think it was an 8 a.m. like shoot call. So we had to be like it had basically, in other words, at 8 a.m. it was action. That means that we have to be set up by like 6:30, you know what I mean? And to set up a fucking film crew is no easy task because
Yeah.
you gotta get the shot right, you gotta make sure that the music's in sync, you gotta make sure that everybody's got their parts rehearsed. And never mind egos, never mind fucking who hasn't eaten, never mind who's showing up late. That's I won't say any names, but
There was some
oh,
disdain in that one.
oh yeah. I think pretty much all of my videos have had some type of disdain, for better or for worse. But again, this is just sort of the nature of the beast, and this is what I signed up for. I didn't know it going in, but I sure as hell do now. But it still hasn't scared me off. I'm still here. So fuck. I mean, I'm either crazy or I just really love this, or both.
We went into detail about Break the Cycle and Through the Night.
Yes,
The one after that was Distant Romance, which I presume is your love song, quote unquote.
correct.
Uh,
Absolutely.
is
Mhm.
that about the German lady in question?
It is absolutely you you're very perceptive.
God, I wonder how I got that.
It is. In fact, I wrote it for her while we were still together. We're not, unfortunately, not together anymore. But I wrote it for her when we were still together, living together out there in Germany. And because when we got together, we were actually separated for like 8 months because of the pandemic. I couldn't get into Germany. She couldn't come to LA, and it was hell. And I was like, man, somebody needs to write a song about that feeling of having to deal with being away from your partner for so long, and not just like because they're at work, but because they're on another continent, man. It's just long distance relationships, like somebody needs to write this song. And I'm like, I guess that somebody's me, because I just think it's a real situation. I can't tell you how real it is to be just, you lose sleep, dude. Like you're up at odd hours of the night because of the time difference. As we're conducting this interview, you obviously understand. So we did this every day, every single day for like a
Mhm.
while, and that's not easy, and especially when you miss the person. So yeah, it was a very kind of, again, cathartic thing I did for that experience.
And now you have Transatlantic, which is the latest
Mhm.
one.
Yes.
Of the four tracks that you've written now, is there one that stands out amongst them? I mean, Break the Cycle obviously was your first, and you said
Mhm.
is one of the more cathartic ones on there.
Yeah.
But is there one that sort of speaks to you in a manner different to the others?
Great question, man. I would say, to answer that, they speak to me in different ways. So I don't know that I necessarily have one that stands out, because like there's days where I just want to hear Break the Cycle. There's days where Through the Night is exactly what I need. Or there's days where Distant Romance is like, oh my God, where have you been all my life? How come you didn't sound this good when I finished recording you? What the hell? It's like they take on a life of their own, dude. It's weird. Like, I don't understand how music can change long after you've put it out. It's almost like what you put into it, like I said, is like a living organism. I don't understand how that works. It's something to do with the human psyche, but I'm getting ahead of myself. To answer your question, um, they just mean some different things to me in different ways. So they're all my babies. I can't really favor one over the other, man. It's hard to do that.
I can
Yeah.
imagine. Yeah. Well, I guess, they all have different meanings anyway. I mean, as we've gone through
Mhm.
today, all of them sort of pinpoint different elements of your life. So no wonder you can't. They're all so like
Mhm.
segregated from each other. You can't really pinpoint any of them down anyway.
Yeah. What I will say though on this note is that I feel like as an artist, I'm growing, and I feel like, take Transatlantic for example. In that song in particular, I was able to get a little bit more, how can I say, abstract, almost a little bit more um metaphorical with my lyrical content, because I'm usually a very straightforward guy, but like I'm sort of playing around now with like metaphors, and I'm playing around with like, poetry in a way that I never really did, because I wasn't a lyricist. I was always just a guitar player, but now I'm that song in particular, again, could be a podcast in itself, because it's actually, believe it or not, this is going to sound crazy, it's 7 years in the making.
Wow.
Yes, so I actually wrote that song in 2017, at least the main riff, but this was obviously years before Oceans Away was even a twinkle in my eye. I didn't know my girlfriend at the time. None of these circumstances existed. That was just a riff that I had. And the reason that song is so special, so maybe this actually might contradict what I said earlier. This song is actually very special to me because it was the first song that I ever wrote for myself. Everything I wrote prior was for another band, for another context, for it just wasn't for me. But sorry, through the Transatlantic, that song, fucking, I remember writing, singing the chorus at the time, which changed. It's not even the same anymore, but I just remember singing like the hook and, hearing the chord progressions, and I was like, dude, like I wrote a song, like this is my first song for me, and it was a pivotal moment. And so most Oceans Away fans might think, oh, Break the Cycle is Robbie's first song. No, actually, it's not. Transatlantic was. It just happened to come out in a different order because I didn't. I actually shelved it many times, and I would bring it back from the dead, and then I would send it back to the dead and bring it back. It kept going through these things because I was like, I don't know if this is a punk song. I don't know what kind of song this is. I don't even know if this would fit in the band. And you know, it just, that was a pain in the ass to write. Like that song, I tell my friend all the time, writing music is like childbirth. Like you just like stop, like don't come out. I mean, I've never had a baby. I'm just saying, like, like they're like these things that are sent from God, and like they just so badly want to be born, but they're so excruciatingly painful. But like you have to give them life, because they just keep, otherwise they'll keep tugging at you. So eventually Transatlantic was born, and I mean, we could talk about that if you'd like, but I mean, basically, that was sort of the culmination of years of everything I'd been to up to this point. And the name says it all. I mean, it speaks volumes to the name of the band. It speaks volumes to my experience thus far in Germany and in the States, and with my relationship. I would say it was all of those things. So yeah, I guess I might have contradicted what I said earlier, but actually, Transatlantic is very special to me. Very special.
I presume that it wasn't always called Transatlantic, considering you wrote it prior to moving. Is that where the parentheses of Stay True comes from? Was that the original title, or is that just an extra element of the song?
I love this because then this kind of gives me like insight into how rumors start and how things like just sort of take
This
on a
is
life of their own.
this is
Yeah,
purely just from looking at the title. It's in all
right.
caps as well, which I wondered if that was intentional or
That
just.
was that was very intentional. Everything about my music is definitely intentional. Good question. Transatlantic was not the original title. It was, I think, a working title that I had found when I was on a flight back from Munich to Canada. But before that, it was called being from England, you might laugh. It was called what was that Shakespeare play? The Tempest.
The Tempest.
It was called The Tempest.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because originally before Germany, I was writing it about the experiences that I've had with anxiety, which I've had many. Um, but then it just changed, obviously, with life changing. So transatlantic just felt more, I guess, appropriate. And I thought about it because I was taking a transatlantic flight from Munich to Canada, via Canada to LA, and it just sort of stuck because I tried other things, but it just sort of stuck. Stayed true in parentheses. I always wanted to have a song that was parenthetical, and actually at the end of the song, I don't know if you've heard it yet, but at the end of the song, that lyric is in the song, and it sort of just echoes, no matter what I've been through, I've stood true to myself, and you should too. You know what I mean? Whether it's your podcast, whether it's your ambition, your marriage, whatever, stay true to that. Don't fucking cheat on it, because it's like all you have. So I just echo at the end of the song. If you listen carefully, it's in the background. It's stay true to yourself is what I say. So it just felt like it needed to be in the title.
Obviously, having the transatlantic makes sense, but the stay true just on the end. Interesting that you bring up anxiety as a thing that may have been as a result of that. I mean, I'm a painfully anxious person, but obviously my creativity comes out in this and being unable to shut up. So I'm, I think again, it's a really great way for people to exude their anxieties into a talent. I'm not entirely sure where your anxieties came from. Obviously, you've had troubles with, being transatlantic, hence the song. But
I mean, if it's a question or if you're just wondering,
it's hard to, I don't know, it's hard to navigate because obviously the
Yeah.
podcast is about it, but some people are more inclined to talk about it than others. So it's up to you.
Yeah, well, again, I don't want to be too long-winded, but I mean, for me, as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, I grew up in a pretty crazy environment. I didn't have like my parents didn't have the healthiest relationship, and my brother and I were kind of exposed to things a little too young. And I think we sort of developed through that trauma in different ways. My brother lashed out in with substance abuse, and I lashed out with anger and anxiety, especially anxiety. I remember being like 8 years old and already having my first panic attack, like literally running and not knowing why I'm running or what I'm running from. So it stems from childhood for sure. But I think I'm also a highly sensitive person, which statistically speaking, like 99% of artists are. So I'm very sensitive to light, to sound, to negative energy. Like if things are too much, like violence on, in the world, like it just gets to me, dude. And I'm very impressionable. So I flare up like a fucking balloon, and I need to either punch it out, scream it out, run it out, work it out, do something. But it just gets under my skin, So I don't personally like to, I used to, but I don't personally like to label myself as an anxious person, only because I feel like it keeps me trapped in that cycle. What I do now say is, I think because of my circumstances as a child, I've been sort of predisposed to have higher anxiety than other people. Again, I don't think people are born anxious. I think it's sort of circumstantial, and we end up developing these really fucked up habits because I think naturally we're all pretty healthy, but then life happens. I mean, I put myself through several long-term relationships that were hell. I was the first in my family to get a degree at a research university, and that almost drove me crazy, because I just wanted to prove to myself that I can do it. Coming from like a working class family that didn't really go to school, I just felt like I wanted to do that. And I've just always kind of done things that have gotten me out of my comfort zone. Like I didn't think it through. I just did it because I felt this urge to do it. And a lot of that shit would cause me anxiety because it's like, oh fuck, I didn't think this through. Like even the band, like this is a lot of responsibility, and then I'm over here fucking panicking, like, why did I do this? Why did I do this? And but I'm just a very ambitious guy, and I like to stay busy with my art. And the thing that I love about this, Nick, is that it actually helps me to kind of process my anxiety, because again, anxiety is a son of a bitch, as you know, and it's still it's chronic for me at this point, like it's something that I think I'm kind of always going to deal with, but I'm just learning how to deal with it so that it doesn't like manage me. I manage it, and it doesn't like, I want to have a good quality of life, man. So I don't want to give it away anymore to these thoughts and to this feeling. I just want to see it as you're over here, I'm over here. I know you like to sneak up on me sometimes, but look, you're just a fucking dumbass. And I'm
Stay over
gonna,
there.
yeah, exactly. Just stay over there.
Keep your
Like,
distance.
yeah, keep your distance, man. Cause God, I'm doing things. I got places to go, people to see. Not today,
Yeah.
not today,
No,
please.
it's exactly that. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with it. I mean, I'm not entirely sure where mine stems from, but I know that I'm the kind of person that almost an offensively emotional person. Like
And that's okay.
anything that sort of becomes a problem gets massively heightened. Thankfully, I'm on medication now, so it's much better than it was.
I'm
Um,
glad.
but
Yeah,
obviously,
man.
you still get these heightened moments, and I
Mhm.
think one of the main lines that I took from I can't remember where it was now, but someone just said, "Don't let life live you,"
Mhm.
and I've sort of taken that as and wrapped it into my own anxieties and gone, if you let it, it will
Mhm.
just take over and
Oh
you won't
yeah.
be able
Oh
to
my
settle.
God.
You won't feel that calmness anymore. You'll be,
Oh,
sitting in bed with the anxiety of someone being
yeah.
hunted for sport. But if you sort of accept the way it is and
Mhm.
know that, 95% of stuff you think about is never going to happen.
It's not. Trust me. I can guarantee you, dude. For years I've been telling myself I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna go crazy. I'm gonna go to a nut house. This is the end of this is my last day on earth because this is gonna just consume me. It's just fucking fear, like magnified by a million because your whatever amygdala or whatever is swollen, and like logic just takes a back seat. Like I've done a lot of research on this, and I just like you're gonna be okay, is what I'm saying, Nick. I'm gonna be okay. Like, so I mean, long story short, we're gonna be fine. It sucks having anxiety. It's, I'm sorry that you also deal with it, bro. Like, I mean, my heart goes out to you, and
Oh, thanks, man.
honestly, no, honestly, like anybody who tells me they have anxiety, I immediately feel this connection to you, man, because like it's a real thing. It is a mental health crisis, globally, and it's fucked up, dude. But this is exactly why we do these things, because this is good for our anxiety. This is good for healing it. It's so fucking good to connect with a human being and
Mm.
just remove these bullshit made up borders and what. Let's just be let's just be friends. Let's just be cool. Let's just live, right? Like, because we as people self-sabotage, and it's criminal. It really is criminal. Like, be who you are. If you're emotional, that's fine. I'm emotional, dude. I mean, why do you think I'm an artist? Because it's the one place that lets me be that. Because everywhere else says, hey, what the fuck's wrong with that guy? Why is he all fidgety? Why is he so nervous? Why is he this? Why is he that? It's like, well, fuck off, because I am, like I'm just tired of, going to these places where it's shunned because, unfortunately in our society, mental health is still stigmatized, which it really needs to not be. We have made strides, but like I'm a number one proponent for things like therapy, medication, eating right, talking it out, calling a friend. Like, I mean, I do this on the daily, bro. Like, it's not just music that I use. I use so many things now because, dude, like, I mean, life is real. We are real. The problems that we go through are real. And I used to wear a mask and kind of want to be perceived as something that I wasn't, and I think that's sort of endemic to humanity. But I'm peeling it back. I'm trying my best to just let people know who I am at face value without you having to get through all these layers of bullshit, because there's no time for that. Um, and don't be defined by your anxiety either, man. Like, I know it sucks, like I said, but it is not who we are. It's just something that we are going through, and We will get through it. Just find out what helps you. For me, it's the arts. For me, it's doing a podcast. For me, it's talking to a good friend, whatever. Just find out what works for you. 9 times out of 10, you do know. You might just be embarrassed to admit it, or maybe you're trying to prove it to other people. You got to prove it to yourself. Yeah, man, I'm a big proponent for wellness, dude. Honestly.
No, and it's such a positive message to give people, and it's exactly why something like this is such a benefit to not just me, but to people like you. And I imagine that
Mm-hmm.
maybe in the future, obviously you can't talk about it, but
Mm-hmm.
the songs that you have planned
Mm-hmm.
for Oceans Away with,
Mm-hmm.
just your own writing, would this mental health aspect play a role in it, or is it something you're going to try and distance from your writing?
Definitely won't distance from it because I think it's so important. To answer your question without giving away too much, one of the most recent installments in our catalog will touch on this subject in some degree or another. Yeah, that's all I can say. But yeah, definitely.
It's I love that everything has to be so under the surface. It's
I just,
there's only so much that can be said. I've got to be patient. I can't dig too deep yet.
yeah, and then you also don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, right? You want to keep people excited. So that's one of the things that I think I've become an expert at, is just sort of like not giving too much away, just giving the right amount, because I like to keep you guys on your toes. And it also is fun for me because it's just like building this suspense. Like, what the fuck, Robbie? What's happening? You're only giving us a picture of you in the studio. What is it? I just, yeah. So it's
Well,
great.
obviously your sounds in previous songs have ranged from like melodic hardcore, some pop punk in there, some classic punk sounds.
Yeah.
Will the future songs be similar to that, or is there a bit more experimentation going on?
Oh, wow, gosh. Putting me under the gun right now, man.
You didn't know, no major details, just what they sound like, which is kind of the point of music. So
Right.
don't feel too intimidated.
No, dude. You know what? I'm just getting in my own head, as we anxious people do.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, dude. No, I love that you're asking me this question because to answer your question just eloquently, we are going to be experimenting with new territory, and we're gonna go where we've never gone before.
To
we
space.
Yeah, dude, we're gonna gosh, I mean, again, I don't want to give away too much, but all I can say is that because you just beautifully summarized the types of sounds that we've experimented with: melodic hardcore, classic punk, and pop punk. That's exactly, I would summarize what we've done thus far.
I've done my research.
Yes, you very much have. Good on you, man. Yeah, no, for the future, see, if you ask anybody who listens to Oceans Away, one thing they'll tell you is that no two songs sound like each other. And that's the point for my project, is that I don't want to be one of those bands that just, you're like, oh, another MXPX record. It sounds just like the one that they released in 1992. It's like, I love them, don't get me wrong, but like there's just not a whole lot of variation. And that drives me nuts. Me personally, some people, like, they just want that consistency, and that's fine. But for me, it's like, it's almost like a movie arc. It just has to keep building. Otherwise, I get bored. I just turn it off. So it's just kind of how I'm wired, not just with music, but everything. Like, you have to switch it up. So yeah, sorry for the long-winded answer, but we are definitely going to be experimenting with some different shit for this next phase in Oceans Away. Yeah, absolutely. As you should, because I don't like to confine myself to just, I mean, I know I call us a melodic hardcore band, which I think is suitable for, like, a placeholder, but it's beyond that, because I was raised with everything from metal to rap. I'm not saying that we're going to do that. I'm just saying, like, I was raised with everything from metal to rap to fucking Spanish music to like reggae to fast punk to, you name it, dude, hip hop. Like, I was raised with so much music that for me it would be criminal not to like flirt with those things a little bit. So yeah, man, yeah.
I
That's
mean,
all I got to say.
I love different shit. I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
Same, rather than same shit, different day, different shit, same day. Would much prefer that.
Yes. Right. Good. Exactly. So yeah, no, we're definitely pushing I am definitely pushing the envelope. I'm experimenting with different everything, different techniques, different tunings, different approaches to singing, different, writing styles. I've actually like I've actually been investing in my craft. Like, not to say I wasn't before. It was just before I just wanted to get things out. Now I'm actually like taking like singing lessons. Like now I'm actually like doing more research into what goes into a song, like as far as like structure or what makes a song interesting, or how could I break away from what I've done thus far? Because I'll listen to my music and I'll go, shit, I love that, but I feel like I'm doing that too much. Maybe I should try something else. Or but then like what gets my ADHD going is like, well, hold on, what if that is like a signature of the band and maybe I should kind of keep that consistent? I don't know. You know what I mean? So we'll see. All I can say is, like I said, we're gonna be exploring new territory.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the kind of things you grew up with, because that can bring in the other half of the show,
Okay, great.
which is what are the inspirations? What of those that you picked, that you named? Would you say?
Mhm.
I mean, LXPX you mentioned by name, but what are some of the artists or some of the sounds that you've heard from growing up that have inspired the sound of Oceans Away now?
Good question. Good question, man. And a very hard one to answer. Funny enough, because I feel like Oceans Away sounds nothing like what I grew up with, believe it or not. Because I grew up with traditional, like if we're talking my foundation, like I mean, I grew up with traditional like California punk, like Social Distortion, Rancid, Black Flag, the Adolescents, all these like LA and Orange County, the Offspring, like these are like my roots. But again, I grew up in the 90s, so like, and in LA, a very alternative, very just like outside the box kind of a place. And like one minute we were listening to hardcore punk, the next minute, like there's this fucking badass like Tupac and Biggie song on the radio, and you're like, yo, you're bobbing your head to that. And then the next minute you're listening to Sick of It All and this New York hardcore, and like it's just heavy as fuck. And then the next minute you're listening to Slipknot in Iowa, and then Korn from Bakersfield, or Metallica, and so everything Nick was coming at different directions. Like I'm sort of a hodgepodge of everything, dude. And I know that sounds cliche, but I am. So I guess to like try to make it a little bit more succinct, I was listening to everything from heavy metal to hardcore to traditional punk to hip hop, gangster rap, right? Because Eazy-E and Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre are like staples from Los Angeles. So loved those guys as well, because gangster rap had all of the attitude that punk rock did. We were just doing it in different ways, but we were both talking about having a chip on our shoulder. And I think that's what I loved about that type of music, is that it was cathartic in the sense that, both of these things were rebellious. Both of these things were very anti-establishment, anti-society, anti just bullshit. And I just love the rawness. I love raw music. If it's overly produced and polished, it drives me nuts, like Kelly Clarkson or something. But I just love music that's raw. Like there wasn't a ton of production, although there certainly was arrangement. But like, when you can tell the singer might have fallen off key, or maybe you can tell that like that session might have seriously wrecked his vocal cords, but like he got the take. You know what I mean? So yeah, dude, just I mean, honestly, everything under the sun. But I think growing up, to make it even a little bit more specific to me, I always really gravitated towards heavier, sort of edgier and even angstier music. Because like I mentioned, I grew up very anxious, and anger was something that I experienced at a young age. And when a guy was angry and pissed off on a record, like, Rage Against the Machine, when he was like, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Like, I'm like, yes, exactly. That's how I feel. Or, when Corey Taylor is talking about like, whatever he says, like just, he's very just anti-bully, anti-society. It just spoke to me, and I loved the sound of a heavy guitar. It just was like snake charmer to me. I was like, whoa, it just totally threw me off. But Sorry if it's too general, man, but like,
No, not at all. I think it's quite good to have such a varied
mm-hmm,
discography behind you of influence. Like you don't want to. Obviously, I deal with a lot of people. I say deal with them. I talk to a lot of people who come from a background of
mm-hmm,
2000s and 90s pop punk and sort
mm-hmm,
of the new metal stuff. But it's kind of nice to hear someone who has such a
mm-hmm,
like an eclectic mix to listen to. I mean, even recently, I've been getting into like modern day sort of contemporary, like lo-fi hip hop. Never thought that would be
yeah,
happening, but
same,
you
yeah.
know, so Baz, J. Cole, that kind of thing. I've been listening to a lot
Oh,
more of them, and
great.
never expected to. But I think
Yeah.
that's if I've learned anything from doing this show and like talking about so many bands and even writing about ones like your own,
Mm-hmm,
your the
mm-hmm,
amount of music you listen to can just grow
mm-hmm.
exponentially without you even realizing.
Right, right. And I don't know how I failed to mention this just now, but dude, and I'm not just saying this because you're the host, but England in particular played a huge role in my formative musical years. Like I don't think I would even be a guitarist or a musician if it wasn't for the Smiths, if it wasn't for the Cure, if it wasn't for Oasis, if it wasn't for the Rolling Stones, if it wasn't for, I wasn't really a big Beatles fan, but like my dad and his brothers were, but I definitely loved the songs. My uncle was huge into Sabbath and like that classic rock. So I got like that from his side, but 80s new wave was like huge, like in my upbringing. And like British rock, even like when Blur came out with that record, like that was kind of different. I remember owning that record, that CD I should say, when I was like 5 and loving like the music. Obviously I would always play song 2 like on repeat, woohoo. But dude, England, like my brother and I had this, still do have this, not so much as we used to when we were kids, but we had this just fascination with English culture because of like all of the films we were watching, like Train Spotting, you know.
We don't all do heroin, just saying.
I, I know, but as a kid, we were just like drawn to the accent and the culture, and we would actually be surprised that like when MTV would interview these bands, like I didn't know Oasis was British until like I heard Noel Gallagher talking.
They're painfully Mancurian.
Exact right, painfully Mancurian, exactly. So they're even like their accents way thicker. And I was just like, me, my brother and I remember my brother being mad actually. He was like, damn it, they're English. I thought they were American. I was like, I don't care. It's all the same to me. I just think it's cool. And the Cranberries, and all this just UK, just no, England and the UK, Scotland, like all these territories really were very pivotal. And especially when I got to high school, because it didn't stop in childhood, man. When I was in high school, I and I still do listen to a sub genre of punk called UK 82. Have you heard of it, or are you
I
familiar with that?
haven't actually.
Okay, so UK 82 would encompass bands like The Exploited, the UK Subs, The Oppressed, the Cockney Rejects, the Toy Dolls, Special Duties, Crass. They're very, very, very like just sub culture, just very niche English punk. But dude, I don't if you haven't heard it, do yourself a favor and listen to it because it's so
Well, I've
fucking cool.
I've just looked it up, and yeah, it says it's a style of street punk which pushed the genre's tempos faster and embraced the influence of heavy metal music, particularly new wave of British
Mhm.
heavy metal bands like Motorhead and Iron Maiden. The term UK 82 is taken from the title of a song by The Exploited, which is who you said. So I did not know that. You've
Oh
taught me
man,
something.
I'm happy that I could because you're in for a treat. I mean, if you like punk, and if I mean obviously you do, um you're really gonna like this stuff. I mean, I used to watch like it was called the Punk and Disorderly. I had a DVD in high school and I would watch it religiously because these bands were so talented, but they were so raw and so like because they weren't getting signed to EMI and Rough Trade Records. Like these guys were on these very independent labels that they might have gotten like, I think Exploited was the only band that was on the top of the pops. in the 80s that was of that subgenre, but everything else was just under the fucking radar, dude. And that's what I think I loved about it, was that it would be cool to go to school with a shirt that said the Partisans, a band from Wales, and like a guy who listens to Puff Daddy would be like, "The fuck is that? The fuck are you wearing?" And I'm like, "Dude, you don't even know what the fuck this is, you know?" So it was just something very sexy about like being into that UK 82, and just very just foreign and exotic. So I still love it. In fact, I was supposed to be in England this month. That was my plan. I was supposed to go see The Oppressed, a band that I've wanted to see since high school, but fortunately, I couldn't make the trip. But I mean, yeah, I am infatuated with English underground punk.
Well, I'm sure you'll get here at some point because I wouldn't come now because the weather is fucking awful. But
Oh, right. It's probably gonna be bad for like till summer, right?
it'll probably be bad until 2038 at this rate, to be honest. Give it
Oh no.
14, give it 14 years and then you can
Oh
come
no.
when it's actually sunny.
Who can we blame for that? Is it can we blame Boris Johnson for that?
We can. We can blame him for literally everything. Well,
Sorry, you guys got to deal with
mainly the
that.
Conservative Party, but that's a whole other podcast that I won't be involved in because I'll be shot. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on. That's been awesome. I
Thank you
mean,
for having me, man.
to have
Thank you for having
like
me.
your influences and to hear about the history of Oceans Away from yourself in such detail is just what I wanted. And now I've had it, I can be like hyped up for what's coming up in the future from you. But I guess, what if you have any sort of final notes for people or final comments for what they can look out for, and yeah, just what is there to happen for Oceans Away in the future?
Thank you for having me on, Nick. It's been a pleasure being on your podcast, man. I think this is fantastic, and you shouldn't stop it. You're a very lovely host. You're a great guy, and I really enjoyed myself. So thanks for having me on, first
Oh,
of
it's
all.
it's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Secondly, as far as like Oceans Away, man, all I can say is this band means everything to me. And I never thought in a million years, like I said, I would have started a band in Germany and have this connection to Europe. And but things happen beyond our control, and it's often very beautiful. I just want to say thank you to the fans who listen to Oceans Away, from here to England to Germany to wherever you're listening. Thank you. Just thank you so much, because it means the world to this American dude who just would sit for hours in his bedroom just looking at the ceiling, dreaming of one day having some kind of success with music. And I feel like I've finally reached it, because and I'm just skimming the surface, man. This is just the beginning. So thank you for continuing to listen to the band, sharing it with your friends, sharing it with your loved ones. I appreciate it. And I hope that it has played some kind of an important role in your life. And just continue to carry that torch. And as far as the future of the band, we're not stopping. We're not stopping. There's no stopping for this band. Can't stop, won't stop. You know what I mean? Like,
Exactly.
it's it's look out for us. 2025 is going to be a very special year. I do foresee tours. I do foresee shows around the globe. If not like just in America, we're definitely going to be playing in the EU. We definitely have our eyes on the UK, because we do start. I am seeing like a growing community out there. Not huge, obviously, but I do see that we have fans popping up there. I definitely want to hit cities in the US. There's a guy who is a big fan of the band out in Ohio, and he was like, "Dude, I love your band." I'm like, "How the fuck did you hear us?" We're not signed to a label, so I don't know how you found us. But in any case, thank you for listening to Oceans Away. And 2025 is going to be very special. So I appreciate the love, and just stay true.
Stay true indeed.